welcome to the Romance Writers Room. I hope you all are having a good Sunday, a lazy Sunday, a relaxing Sunday, and you come here, with your beverage of choice, coffee, tea, water, adult beverage, juice, whatever you choose to drink, and come chat with us about love and space and all the wonderful things outside of the earth. I have wonderful human beings with me that we will go and do some intros. So let's start with Des, which is my permanent host for the Romance Writers Room. And we go Des, Tiffany, which is the writer that will be helping tonight, and Dolores, which is our guest co-host. So take it away, Des.
Got it. Hello, friends. I am Desiree M. Ortega. You can find me over on YouTube at Coffee Reading Writing. I post weekly videos on Wednesdays. I stream Mondays, right by the moon live stream, 8 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, I also stream almost daily on Twitch, twitch.tv/Desiree M. Ortega. And that's me. Tiffany.
Oh, hi. I'm Tiffany. I am a bookstagrammer and an alien romance writer. You can find me on my bookstagram at Tiff Reads. I talk a lot about alien romance and even monster romance too. So, yeah.
So
And
I'm Dolores Medill, and I like to call myself storyteller. I'm currently writing a sci-fi romance out in space, and that's kind of why I'm here. But I also stream games, sci-fi also, and all kinds of other things. I like to explore storytelling in its multiple ways.
awesome. And
Love
you're
that.
here in my channel, Esther Maria Andujar. I am a Puerto Rican writer aspiring to be a hybrid author. I am the author of Marina the Vampire, which is a paranormal romance available through Kindle Vella, Coffee, and Patreon. And today we are going to talk about romance out of space, specifically romance within the big genres like sci-fi. What makes it like what makes romance like sci-fi romance to be sci-fi romance, and why is it not sci-fi with a subplot romance?
Mm.
Um, how it has like um to be pun intended, got all those different tentacles about like a monster, alien romances, kind of like humanoids, all the different things happening in the
Cyborg.
sci-fi
Yep.
land. Cybers, like there's so many things,
Mm-hmm.
so many things, and we want to talk it all of it. I want to talk about all of it. So,
Yeah.
who wants to start?
Oh boy. Where do we start? That's the question.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
I mean, I guess first would be the distinction of what is sci-fi romance compared to a sci-fi that has a romantic subplot within it. And one way to think of it, or an easy way to think of it, is that a sci-fi romance is within a sci-fi setting, but the story is centered around a romantic couple of one sort. Granted, it can be more than two people, but depends what kind of sci-fi romance you're into. So at the end, the story centers around creating this romantic connection between characters. Whereas a sci fi that has a subplot of romance, you can think of as like Star Wars. We have Han Solo and Princess Leia. They are a romance, but they are not the center focus of the story. We're not following their journey specifically and only. It is a way bigger subplot. It's a way bigger plot of sci fi, and then within that, there's a sprinkle of romance in it. So that's one way that I would say you could look at that.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, I would
And
agree.
how did
The
yeah.
Nope.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I agree. Like, a sci-fi romance, the ending plot the conclusion has to be usually very tied to the couple versus in something that has a subplot. The book could end and everything can be happy, but the what the outcome is with the couple doesn't really matter. Um, Also, I want to throw in there because there you also have to think of, besides sci-fi romance, of the sci-fi erotica, because when you look for sci-fi romance, a lot of times you get sci-fi erotica, which isn't necessarily a happily ever after or happy for
Mm,
now either. And there has to be, I think, even within the genre, there's still not much of a definition of like what is difference, because a lot of sci-fi romance is very spicy, though the new traditionally published sci-fi romances that are coming out, I think might help start to solidify the the differences.
mm,
Nice.
hmm.
Nice, nice. So how did we got from throwing
Uh-oh.
romance as the
Our
main
guest
plot
is
and
gone.
oh, we're having technical difficulties, but I'm pretty sure she's gonna come back.
Yes.
Uh so in while she comes back, how did we got from throwing romance as the main plot into sci-fi? How did we got to alien romance and monster romance and all of this wonderful more than humans but not supernatural creatures in
Hmm.
sci-fi? How did we got there?
Well, I will say, from for the story that I'm writing and a lot of my other like ideas, it's really like I like this concept, but I don't want to put it here. So I'm
Mm,
like, what about in space? And then that was literally my idea for my current one that I'm writing. I tried to write it as contemporary. I hated it. And then one day I was like, let's put it in space. And then I was like, yeah, there you go. It's so much easier for me to write now.
And then I don't know how we got there exactly, but for me, it was just a matter. I'm like, I don't know how we got there, but I know for me personally, I was just curious to find other romance genres because give me romance in any type of subgenre or genre, and I'm there for it. That's my thing. Give me a romance, however you give it to me, as long as it's a romance. So I'll do historical romance, sci-fi romance, all the romances. Anyway, and so I went looking, and it just so happened that it was a romance, but with someone not from this world. and I got intrigued. And next thing I knew, I was like, oh, this works. Probably because they're a little more humanoid, the ones I read. So
mhm.
it worked because I was like, I just pictured it was human ish with some variations. And then that expanded with time. And I found I was very intrigued by the different variations of stories.
Yeah. So yeah, like what Ewa was mentioning, like I think the this I not I mean it's not the idea only, but kind of like having a way to explore emotions
Mm,
without one of them being human probably is a very interesting topic to a lot of writers. Uh Especially because when you create a character that this his entire or her entire growing up experience is completely different from a human, emotions will be very different and will be
mm,
shown very differently
Yeah.
too. And if you add language difference, that's gonna be even probably even more interesting.
exactly. Yeah. And I've read those where language is a barrier at first. And so that becomes interesting how the two that are getting to know each other who are completely foreign to one another have to find a way to communicate, and then even crazier when that communication turns into feelings, and or the lack of communication that requires this new way of and being able to speak to one another, and then it grows feelings, and then eventually somewhere along the line they find a way to communicate properly to each other, Usually, not
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
I did read one that I was like, are they never going to understand each other? And I was so mad because I was like, wait, there's never going to be communication that way.
But also learning different types of communication too when you're
Yes.
dealing with like interspecies, or even I feel like um when, because technically like dystopian and stuff is considered sci-fi, but
Hmm.
that can be a different discussion that I have
Yes,
opinions
because
on.
I'm passionate about
Um,
dystopian, so I feel you on that.
yeah, but that
Tone
idea
it
of like
down.
that idea of like utopias and how there's never like an actual utopia. When you actually take it away from Earth, and this is kind of like how what I'm doing in mine, you can kind of have that idea of what would you think a society would actually be like, that's accepting of gender and sexualities and races and all this other stuff, because those planets have had their own journey of self discovery before they got introduced into the wider universe. Very much like Star Trek, where
Mm,
we've come so far and then introducing other species, and every planet is at a different state of acceptance and development, and how everyone intermingles without having to think about uh, Earth and current Earth, or like in my case, there is no humans. So I'm like, I just make up my own rules.
which is fun that you could do that.
Yeah. Tiffany, as a reader, because probably you're reading and that's why you ended up writing your aliens romance. What are the aspect that as a reader really pulls you in and then wants you to discover them in your own writing?
Yeah, so what really pulls me into sci-fi romance is really the aspect of how the aliens and the humans get together in the books, because there's a variety of ways that different writers go about it. Like you have writers that will have it where, Earth is dying and they're needing resources, and then they so happen to meet these aliens who, also are lacking like women in some aspect. And so they find out that they're compatible with human women. So they make some type of agreement to where like the human and the alien men can procreate and get together. They even have like a subgenre of sci-fi romance where like there's like alien gladiators that actually like go into an arena and they fight, and then the human women are like prizes for them. And then they just have it to where the human women just get strictly abducted, and then they
Hmm.
land on the alien planet, and they're usually put in a terrible situation where they're typically used as like a pleasure slave type of
Hmm.
situation, but then they always get rescued by another like a good alien hero that ends up being their mate. And I just like how it just like explores those different avenues, and I just think it's really unique. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. How do we as writers, how do we come up with a story, because romance and sci-fi, same with romance and fantasy, they're both big genres.
Hmm.
So how do we as writers conceptualize an idea that will have almost equally romance and sci-fi, because the setting is going to be sci-fi, so there's a lot of world building that has to be done, there's a lot of
Mhm.
interesting exposition. There's a lot of characterization that's going to depend on the setting.
Hmm.
And on top of that, create that romance arc. How do you guys go about that?
Well,
Yeah, well,
I'll
oh.
go. No, no, go, Tiffany. Go, go, go.
I was just gonna say, from how I read it, what I really like how people will put the two together is that usually from how I see it in alien romance specifically, like or sci-fi in general, like the heroine and the hero, they usually come together in the romance by some type of interplanetary like troubles that are going on that alien planet. Either like they've broken a treaty. They have some type of king on that planet that doesn't allow them to be together. Um, they use like spaceships and the technology in order to fight space pirates and stuff like that while they're building the romance. So like to me, I feel like you kind of have to have equal parts of both the romance and the sci-fi plot for the
Mm,
readers to really get into it. I noticed because they're
mm,
really interested in like how the technology works, and how like the societies are built in those particular lands, because usually a lot of the times humans don't have a lot of rights. So like how that hierarchy is built and stuff like that. So
mhm.
I'm not sure if that answered the question really, but
Yeah, that's one aspect. Yeah, no, that is
Yeah,
one aspect. And then
yeah.
to think of just sci-fi romance in general, that's not alien romance. I've read series where it just so happens that we're further in the future and the Earth itself um, got invaded by an alien species, and then the romance is actually two humans within the same camp, or one's a warrior, one's a military man or whatever, and they have to figure something out together. There's a problem that needs to be solved within that specific book in the higher arc of the invasions problem that spans books within the series. And so there's a specific problem that this couple find that they have to come together and solve. And so I've seen it also played out that way. So that's another way that sci-fi romance has worked too.
I would agree with everyone. I also think sci-fi romance is um when I as I mentioned, like where there's this weird line that hasn't been, not that it needs to be fully defined, but like some kind of definition between like erotica and romance. There's a lot of uh, uh not care in making sure both plots are very well laid out, very much like
Mm,
Desiree was saying, where or even Tiffany, where everything comes together at once. I think a lot of also books don't actually do that very well, which is
Mm,
why a lot of people take sci-fi romance as, oh, it's just erotica almost always. Um, which is why I like the fact that we have like Winter's Orbit and things like that starting to come out in more mainstream, because it's doing a good job of trying to have two simultaneous plots going forward that are complementing, much like fantasy romance does a good job of, because there's
mm,
the erotica and the romance. Um, because it's fun to explore different like tentacle aliens or androids or things like that that won't necessarily be found in like a fantasy. So I think there's still a lot of play in
mhm,
sci-fi romance, because I don't know if it's true, but I feel like it's still kind of like a baby-ish
mm,
within the like romance tier list,
mm-hmm,
which is why it's so tied to um, erotica.
mm-hmm,
And because I've enjoyed them, but I've personally read a lot of sci-fi that is labeled sci-fi romance, but I would say it's more erotica, because even though there is like a happily ever after at the end, there's no sci-fi plot. I always feel like, but what
mm.
about this? Can I have more of this?
yeah, it's
I'll
only
read. I'll
sci-fi
have the
because it
booky
is a
digger.
non-human.
Yeah.
And that's where the equal measure of plot and romance has to come in, where you need that balance, where there is like an overall arc of a situation, planetary, whatever going on. And somehow I think a lot of times when it's done well, that's how you incorporate the couple to be a part of fixing the problem
Mhm,
or a part of the
mhm,
problem in some way, so that you get a little bit of both growing with the page. So there definitely has to
yeah.
be a balance. So it's not just erotica.
right.
So I am gonna skedaddles. I don't know why I'm so stuck with that word, but I'm gonna skedaddle everyone
Lean
into the
into it,
next
Esther.
question.
Lean into it.
And if I will make it, I will make a tie with a question JC gave us in the chat. And says we're talking about story structure specifically when we have two big genres. How, as writers, do we know our book idea has legs to be
Mm,
a actual book? Besides, like, it's not a snippet, it's not like a brain fog. It's not like a scene dream or like just a um uh like just a general idea or a premise or a cool concept.
mm,
How do we know we have something that has legs? Because that's what Tiffany wants to know, if her own story has what it takes to be an actual full on story,
mm.
besides just being like romantic moments between an alien and a human person.
I feel like the 3X structure and romancing the beat have a baby. And so you have the 3X structure that focuses highly on like the actual sci-fi plot. And then you have romancing
Mhm.
the beat where you have the factor of the couple and developing that properly and smush them together.
You said
That's
that way better than how I was trying to figure out how to say something like that. Because what I was gonna say is like you have to make sure that both like could you take the sci-fi plot and make it its own story and it still work without the love interests, or
mm,
and can you take the love interests and make it a good story without it being in space? Kind of like where I said I just personally wasn't enjoying writing my contemporary, and then I decided to throw it out into another galaxy, and I was like, oh, I enjoyed it just because I like writing and reading and watching sci-fi more, but still I could take it back and put it on Earth and the story would still work. I just don't want to write that particular story.
that was well said too.
Nice. That is,
Yes.
yeah, and that is very interesting because for myself, the way that I know I have my book idea already has legs, it's if I have the beginning, the middle, and the ending clear, and then have a couple of scenes that will get me from, like, it will be like the beginning to the next scene, maybe one or two more scenes, then the midpoint, a couple of scenes, and then the ending. If I have that, I'm like, okay, this is solid. This has a skeleton. This has legs. It can start walking. Do I need more? Of course. But at least it's shaping into a book. But that is so interesting if you like can take the stories and be like, if it's just a sci-fi, is it a book? And if it's just a romance, is it a book? Still, if either way is a book, that's a good tell. And obviously, if you're a plotter, if you have a very detailed outline, probably you can figure it out. Um, so, Tiffany, this is the moment where we're gonna start trying to figure out with you if what you have is a book or still like an idea or just a couple of scenes. Uh, do you feel that you have enough to create both the romantic arc and then whatever else is the sci-fi element of the story?
Um, I actually do think that I do. One thing that I am working on though is developing more like the different species of aliens on the particular planet. And some of the planetary rules and stuff of that
Mm.
particular universe. But other than that, yeah, I think it's got like a pretty decent balance of romance in the sci-fi aspect of it.
Nice.
Okay, okay. Why do you think your book, what you have right now, why were you worrying that it doesn't have legs or it wouldn't be interesting?
For I was more so worried about. because pretty much with my idea, the hero and heroine are eventually going to meet, and my hero is actually a bounty hunter, and he's trying to find this particular art piece. And my the heroine, whenever she got abducted by these particular aliens, she actually saw like a bit of the art piece, just by the insignia that this alien king had on him. And so they figure out that, oh, she was on that ship with that art piece. And so he and the heroine are going to be on a spaceship for a lot of the novel, going and trying to hunt these alien pirates down, while also like building a romance. And I
Mhm.
guess I was just worried about them being on the spaceship for too long, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to keep them like interested and stuff like that. So
Can I
I
ask?
think with that,
Yeah,
yeah,
go.
go this.
I was just going to ask, what is her motivation to be on that ship with him, period, instead of just going back
oh,
home?
yes. Okay. So, what happened was, my heroine, she gets abducted
Hmm.
by a group of aliens. And these aliens basically are wanting to sell her as like a pleasure slave to this big honcho alien. And so this alien, he takes her, and in this particular society, they really covet art and artistry because something like some type of catastrophe, which I haven't technically figured it out yet, but where it like wiped, like people don't have really that artistic ability anymore, and so they really covet it. And so the guy that takes her as an owner, he sees her drawing one day, and he notices, oh, this girl can draw, and so he kind of like uses her, and he takes her to this particular, like, I guess like an alien type of art gallery where people can go, and he's forcing her to essentially paint these, I mean, like make portraits for people essentially. And how the hero finds her is there, the king of that particular planet, um he's commissioning the hero to get back that art piece, because the art piece, those aliens that took her stole the art piece too, like they're just going around taking stuff. And so he hears that there's an art show in that particular area, and he goes to that art show, and he sees the heroine there. And he discovers that the heroine's his fated mate, but he's not going to tell the owner that. But pretty much he gets her owner away, and he's able to purchase her from the owner,
Hmm.
and that's how the two of them pretty much meet. Um, if that was answers your question, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And no, and so what? So for her, does she want to go back home when they meet, or does she want to stay with him automatically?
Well, yeah. Whenever she first meets him, like, of course she's scared because, I mean, she's getting bought by another person, and she thinks
Hmm.
that she's just gonna, use him, for a sexual purpose. But he doesn't tell her that they're fated mates at first. He just, like my hero is actually a big proponent of justice, so he doesn't even believe in slavery anyway. So he bought her for the fated mate aspect, and because he just didn't want to see her like bound to anybody. And so she does like want to go back to Earth. Um, and he tells her, well, I mean, if you are able to pretty much help me with this mission, maybe we can figure out a way to get you back there,
Okay,
essentially.
so
Yeah.
that's like her motivate. So that no, so that's her motivation. She thinks she may be able to go back home
Yeah.
if she completes this mission with him.
Yeah, and of course he
Okay.
really doesn't want her to go,
Yeah.
but he's hoping that like while they're on that mission, they're gonna fall in love, which
Mhm.
is going to happen. So
Yes. Okay, no, that's good. I was wondering because I was like, there has to be something that while they're going to be stuck in the spaceship for so long, something has to be driving their motivation so that you
Hmm.
can have some variation within the story, even though the setting is the same place for a significant amount of time. So that works that she has a specific goal.
Also, be
right,
worried about this being on a ship. and it getting like stale or something, are they alone on the ship? Is there
Mm,
other crew
Yeah.
members? Are they going to be making pit stops at stations or other planets, having time to interact? Because to help grow their relationship, you can have her, they dock at a space station to refuel or get supplies, and she goes down with him onto the station, and she happens to see how he interacts with another person, or especially if he hasn't freed her and she's still his slave, like,
mm,
and you're saying that he's not telling her about the fated mates. I'm not sure how um, the slave thing is going to interact, if he's going to play it out more or not. She can
Right.
be like, oh, he's actually a good person because he's being nice to this, other
mm,
old alien or a child alien, you know, on the station, or even, she's sitting at in the like the cafeteria or something, and so one of the crew members happens to see her too, and they're eating, a snack or whatever, and they happen to talk about the captain, and they're like, oh yeah, he saved me from this, like, it doesn't have to be stale if there's other people, other situations that are interacting with the couple, because like, um uh a lot of stories do have that where they're stuck on a ship or they're in a space station. Well, mine personally is in a space station, but they're interacting with bajillion people, and every person grows those two characters and the character relationship together.
mm,
Right. Right.
Yeah. And also exposing her to other like creatures and planets will make her, if they ended up, the ending is them ending up together in the spaceship or in his planet, then that will help her open up to the idea of not actually going back to Earth. So
Right.
it's just, go like looking at how is it gonna end, and then finding places to build those little by little, those little changes.
mm,
Also with the fated mate thing, um, knowing if she's gonna feel it or if it's just
mm,
one-sided, and then she's just gonna fall in love like a normal human falls in love, and has nothing to, like, at least on her side, has nothing to do with the bond, because we're talking about interspecies, and uh it depends on if the human does believe in the soulmate bond, or if they don't believe it. That could have a different
mhm,
dynamic, because he might be prone to do um to react in a more protective way, in a more like, sometimes a more assertive way to protect her, that if she doesn't feel nor believe on a bond, she would be like, this is kind of strange. So that could be good to define if it's a mutual feeling, like if
mhm,
both of them feel the bond, or if it's just him because it is a thing in his species and not a human thing.
Or if
Right.
she does react, but reacts differently because she's not the same species.
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Which could be good because then that can kind of like grow the arc, her character arc, and create some tension so that it's not like automatically they're immediately in love and everything works out kind of a deal. So you have that pull, that push and pull going on within
Hmm.
the characters and the reader as well. Like, is this going to work out? Are they going to actually fall for each other? Is she going to fall for him because he's already fallen for her? So all those things that you could play
Yeah.
with.
This is a
Adjust her
good
motive.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good question from Mama Maggie. Is the talent trait that a species is missing? Is it because it got wiped out of like their gene bank, or if it's just like is it something that has been like scared away of society, and maybe there's people who do art, they just scared of doing it? Is it gonna make human artists or other species artists uh something that the specific aliens want to take and breed to hopefully get that trait back? Like, that is something that you can play on plot wise, and maybe that could affect their relationship. Because maybe then she turns to be coveted, because if it's a something that can be back inbreed into the species, then they want her and people with her talent to be kind of like technically a breeding human or breeding species to
Hmm.
get that back. Um, you know, things to think about.
Yeah.
This I think this was a really great question. Um, when writing sci-fi aspects, do you ever worry when writing it is like the world building will overtake the romance? And if not, or if yes, how do you keep up the balance between both of them, and how do you keep one overtaking the other? Let me leave it up just in case.
I would say that especially if you're slightly concerned about this while you're writing it, make sure every time you're introducing something about the world building, it has to do with the love interest or the main character, where they're
Hmm.
explaining something, just like you would do in fantasy, that it's explaining something because they don't understand, or they're interacting with something for the first time for the reader, and perhaps they're with a friend and their friend doesn't exactly understand, or they're arguing about something, and whether it's like a friend with the love interest or the love interest and the main couple, they're arguing about something, and they're they're explaining world building while arguing, and it makes sense. It's very the same way you would do with fantasy. You
Hmm.
know, you everything has to relate to the love interest and the main character to a certain degree, because again, the plots can stand alone, but they
Hmm.
also have to be integrated to work. So
Exactly. Which is what I was going to say, more or less the same thing. Like, utilize the characters to implement these significant little world building aspects to help tell the story, so that not only are you building the romance, but you're making these characters 3D within this bigger world, and it's going to help not feel like you're pulling one way or pulling the other. You're implementing them together by utilizing your characters, specifically the couple, especially if you have a certain dynamic that is polarizing between them. Then there's a great opportunity to really demonstrate different aspects of your world building by, like what Dolores said, bringing in these two characters that have to kind of figure something out through each other, or learn something from one or the other. So that's one way for sure.
Now, I have a question, because I know since it's a sci-fi, technically you have a pretty good amount of words to work with. Um, but since it's a sci-fi romance, is the romance the pull for the reader? So you want to leave as many words as possible to build a relationship. So where have you guys like either written or have seen in books where the meet cute happens? Especially we're
Mm.
talking about two different species,
Hmm.
and we have to move someone somewhere. Like it's not like a contemporary romance that's gonna happen in like the first three chapters.
Well,
But it cannot happen. It cannot.
well,
It,
yeah.
well.
well, it happens on the first chapter.
No, I honestly, majority that I have read, it happens early on.
Yeah.
The meet cute
Nice.
actually happens early on, because romance is also is such a big part of it. You need to
Mhm.
grab the reader early on with the couple. They have to meet somehow pretty soon for you to, like, you can do a little bit of setup, but that inciting incident and meet cute, like, they have to actually come pretty soon, that I've read. And I've the big portions I've read. And I've preferred it that way because I want to get on with it. I want to
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
want I want to
me
know
too.
who this love interest is, now that I've had a little peek into one of the characters' lives and their status quo, and then I'm seeing how it's about to shift for them. I usually want to figure out who that love interest is pretty soon. So personally, that's been for me.
Yeah. I would agree with that. It usually happens pretty quickly. Um, Very much. I feel like I keep saying this, but very much like fantasy because they follow along in the
They're
same lines.
similar.
And we
Yeah.
have a lot
Um,
of fantasy writers here, so they would get it. So they'd
yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If any, and it also depends on the trope. So like, because I chose to challenge myself, the current story I'm writing is a friends to lovers, which is not something I read very often because I have issues with it. But I decided to write it, and because they're friends, there's not, or at least how I'm writing it, there's not necessarily a meet cute. So I had to like develop a
Mm.
situation for the audience to have the meet cute because the characters don't need to have the meet cute. So mine is like super early on, where if I was writing like enemies to lovers or something, it might be a couple more chapters later. So
Hmm.
I would say it depends on what trope you're deciding to play with,
True.
Nice,
and again the
nice. Do
species.
you, yeah. Do you, Tiffany, do you think your meet cute is gonna happen early, it's gonna happen later?
Yeah, so I was thinking that my meet cute was either gonna happen in chapter 3 or chapter 4. Yeah, I'm making mine like really early. Yeah.
Really early too. Yeah. It seems that that's the consensus everywhere when romance is related. And I mean, I do get it. You want to have as many words as possible to build a relationship, break the relationship, and build it again. Let's see. Is there any other like aspect in your story that you are worried, that you kind of like want to bring to the table and we can kind of like look at it and see? Sorry, that was
Well,
my dog, and I'm like,
oh, no, you're fine. Well, um, I am trying to work on my plot twist with this.
hmm,
Um, because the whole thing with the painting, because the painting is the center of this, because that king wants that painting back. And I am like, my hero is involved with this painting. Like, the twist is that the hero is involved with the backstory of this painting, because I
Mm.
have it designed to where the hero in this world, he is like, he sees that he's the only one of his kind. Like, he doesn't know if there's other people that are of his particular alien race. All he knows is that he himself is just individual and by himself. And when the heroine was on that ship, she didn't really see the whole painting. She just saw the insignia. That's the only reason she knew it belonged to that particular kingdom. And the plot twist is whenever they go and they find that painting, they see that the person on that painting looks a lot like the hero, and they find out that the hero is actually from that planet, and like that king that's over that planet, he pretty much like almost eradicated that whole entire species of people, but there are some of them living on that planet. He just has them like kind of segregated off, and they're like kind of like mistreated and stuff like that. And so that was going to be my plot twist, was that like, I don't know if that's going to really be like a big shocker, but I guess I'm trying to work out like how that's going to effectively work out for him, because I don't know if that king technically would be dethroned. I don't know if I want the king technically dethroned, because I mean, he's going to get in trouble anyways, because I mean, he's had those people there locked up for no reason. So um I don't know if I want my hero to technically, like, to have him, because I don't know if that king were to be dethroned, I don't know if the hero himself would want to actually be the king of that planet, or like what they would do to reinstate another design, because I know he would want to help the little bit of people, that are left on that planet that he's related to in some form. So
Two questions. One, is this, do you see this going further than this book?
yeah, I would actually like to make a sequel.
Okay, because that will then tell you, I think that gives you a hint on what to do with the king. This could be something that's stretched out, that isn't immediately solved, There obviously will be a certain arc that has to finalize within book one, but you can also play with the idea that you don't have to have it fully like panned out by the end of book one with the king specifically situation. My
Right.
second question was, how does this plot twist affect the heroine? How, and if you
Oh,
haven't figured that out yet, that's something to think about, I would say. Like,
yeah,
how
I'll
would
have
that,
to think about that.
yeah, to see how
Yeah.
she gets affected by it, that will add a certain element to help drive your story forward, because they're both affected by this, and that creates then
Mhm.
what will happen next, or what could happen next, or what if situation. So that's something I would say definitely think about.
Not only that, how that would affect their relationship, because at that moment, either they will break up or are broken up, or they are together, depending where you're gonna place your plot
Yeah.
twist. Something already is there's some status on that relationship.
Mm,
So that plot twist, how's it affect the relationship, and that can let you
Mhm.
know what's going to be the story for the second book, both plot wise and romance wise. Because let's say this is just an idea, you can take it or leave it. Let's say this is towards the end, they are already together. So your plot twist towards the end, which is going to make it a little cliffhangery, but a lot of readers do like that and writers do take advantage of it, could be like, okay, so he may be the possible king. So the second book will be like, will he be the king, and how will that affect the relationship? Will they be together? Will she stay in that uh planet? Will his people accept someone who's not their species as a queen? Like
mm,
there's so many things that could, if that was the hat that you take. Now, if they're broken up and that happens, will she feel compelled to go to him and help him? Or will she have something to do with it that will reunite them and have them be like, okay, we really love each other. We cannot live without each other. Let's go back together.
Right.
Yeah, and going with how Desiree was asking the series, my follow-up question to that is what kind of series are you going for? So is this couple gonna be the couple through your
mm,
series, or are you gonna have different couples in each book? Because this couple's romance arc could end in this book, but the overall arc of the king and the people can stay. And let's say the king has a child, and the next book can be the child story of dealing with their father has been dethroned, and maybe they're in house arrest in their room or something, and now they have to figure out how to lead. And perhaps you bring the hero from the first book in as an advisor to help. How do I help these people that maybe I didn't even know anything about this, my father never told me, you know. You can adjust the story at that. So how are you going to take the series also would be important to think about.
mm.
Mhm. Right.
So much to play
This
with.
is a
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is a kind of like question slash recommendation from Mama Maggie. What if the king wanted the painting destroyed, then decided he wants her to repaint it so he can claim it as how he is the like rightful heir, and then dispose of her. Like that could be an idea. It again, this is just ideas that you can jot down, take them or leave them. Also, this is gonna leave us a replay, so you can come back to this whenever you need to. Um, so yeah, that that question by Dolores, like what kind of series, is pretty important too,
Right.
because is it gonna be a series with the same couple? Is it gonna be a series with a different couple? Is it gonna be just two books? Is it gonna be more than two books? Like that's gonna change a lot of it.
Right.
Because it is interesting. That is a very interesting plot twist,
Hmm,
plot wise, but it has to be tied to the romance, since it's
hmm,
Right.
a aliens romance. It has to affect them directly.
hmm.
Right.
So that's something that um you probably have to figure it out, whichever way you decide to do the series. Any other aspect? Because by now, I think you have an idea that yes, people are interested in this story, so you will have readers. You
Yes.
don't worry about that. People will read it, and it
Yeah.
seems that it has legs. You s-
Mm-hmm.
like 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 you have things you probably need to figure out, like everyone. That's when we're not figuring this story out.
For real.
uh Anything, like any other areas in your story that you're like, oh, this is iffy, I don't know about this, does this sound good?
Hmm. Well, um, really, those were just the main things I was kind of
Nice,
worried about, really. Yeah.
nice. um so we had the we were able to read her first two chapters. Well, chapter and a half. The second was not completely done.
Mm-hmm.
um do we have any thoughts or any recommendations, any notes?
Trying to let me remember. Hold on. Yeah.
I think I jotted something down, but now I don't know where I put it.
I know that's what I'm
I
looking. I'm like,
So I think for the first chapter,
mm-hmm.
that interaction with the boss of her work and her trying to kind of like get into this project, um unless that's the tone you're going for, it felt a little bit over the top. uh
Mm-hmm.
uh because I don't, unless she has been trying so many times to get her work seen, it feels very over the top and maybe out of character for her to just, in a very important event, be
Shove pieces
like,
of paper at him.
hey, yeah, hey, here, look at my work, please pick me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would. I would say first of all, I want to say you're really good with description. By the way,
Yeah.
you're really good at kind of like setting description and really kind of painting a scene. Um, and I would just agree that maybe have her either. I mean, granted, there's the you want to. I get that you want her to have that embarrassing moment, but maybe it's a little more thought out how she decides to approach him because it's such a big event and he's around so many people that the idea of just like really taking the chance and just shoving these drawings and designs at him in the midst of all this, I don't know if maybe taking him aside or and then he makes a spectacle of it, or I don't know exactly how I would play around with that, but I would say maybe just reworking that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking there was a lot of emphasis on the scene when I wasn't sure how this related to, besides the fact that I could see that you were seeding her self doubt in her talent.
Mhm.
And then with you telling us kind of like a synopsis, that makes sense. But here at the beginning, it kind of seems like I was almost wondering, is this guy like a secret alien and that's how is that how it's
Hmm.
gonna happen? Like there was so much of an emphasis because you like as I say, you had really good description. You described him so vividly. I was like, is he the love interest?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It took such a bulk of the first chapter that I feel like it kind of set things up with that being the forefront instead of what was about to happen. I feel like you can take aspects of what you wrote in chapter 2 that you sent us and you can bring that up into chapter 1 by minimizing some of that interaction because it seemed so important that it seemed like it was going to have such a way more significant role in this story and the where it was going to lead, and that's not what, he's not that important at the end. he's this placeholder jerk in her life to kind of
Yeah.
demonstrate
Yeah.
an aspect of her character and her personality. But I think you can definitely minimize it and make it less so that it's not such a focal point of the entire chapter.
hmm maybe if you want to keep her um self doubting and kind of like at the juxtaposition of the party at the rooftop and how she was feeling, maybe like she shows this on the way up. Maybe she catches him on the hallway, and he's probably still gonna have with a bunch of assistants and a lot of people trying to kiss his butt. So there's probably gonna be people that he can embarrass her in front. Uh, and maybe because it is a work related thing, she might have to go there after that embarrassment for some amount of time just to save face before she goes back to her office. That could be an option. That
Hmm.
can shorten it. Um, if you want to keep the scene, then I will probably try to make reference like as if the aliens were already watching the scene and were like, wait, she has what we want, or she has something to do with what we're looking for because of this thing we saw.
Hmm.
So it makes then the scene a little bit more relevant.
Because you could even talk about her drawings that the guy tore up. The alien saw it. Is like, oh, she has talent. She can draw. Let's take her.
hmm
Yeah, especially if you're going with the whole like you need to breed back in the that trait within the
Yeah.
species.
Hmm.
Even if you want to link her to the hero situation with his pain, maybe what she draws is kind of like similar or has some aspect of this paint.
The style kind of.
Maybe somehow it got the style or some of the elements got copied in art, and one of the artists that does that style, that artist is her inspiration, and she kind of like emulates that, and maybe they think she knows something about this painting, that's what they're taking her because that's what they saw from her own drawings and paintings. It the scene can be reworked. It's not a complete wash. It's
Mm-mm.
just
Yeah.
it's more like make it relevant
Yeah.
because it's so well placed, and it's like you feel like you're there watching it
Hmm.
all unfold.
Hmm.
But then when you keep reading, you're like, okay, and what what with this scene?
Yeah, I felt like more needed to then happen specifically with everything that was going on in the first chapter. And then I was like, oh, that was just for that moment. Okay. And then
hmm
obviously, because we need her to lose her bracelet. So we need
Yeah,
her to be up there at some point to justify how she lost her bracelet, kind of a deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, what kind of like I am not well versed on buildings in the US, so I probably need a little more information about that fire escape stair or ladder because I was like, this feels either they are in a very rundown building, old building, or like why is it so hard and why does she has to apparently go like climb out of a window? Like where does this which city this is set up that will have buildings that have those type of emergency stairs?
Hmm. Like New
Oh
York
yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that type of building.
New York type buildings with the fire escapes.
Yeah, like brick building. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
But you
maybe
had
make
to be
some,
like very specific because some of them do have a lot of them do have landings because
yeah.
they are made up to for people to get out the window in a landing and go down the
Yeah,
stairs.
that is something
Not
that did
a
throw me off too.
Hmm.
yeah.
Like,
Like
why wasn't there just
especially yeah, cuz I don't I there's I think commercial buildings do have those type of stairs that you have in your story, but they are like very probably in like very specific areas. Like if it's an area that has a lot of people that actually need a fire escape stair, it's probably gonna be the ones with the landing,
Yeah, it made
which
me think
still
more of
will
like a
make it
maintenance
possible.
stair more, or maintenance
Yeah,
Ladder.
ladder. There we
Mm.
go.
Right.
yeah. Like maybe exiting from another part of the building because from her office it doesn't land on the area that she needs to go. That could be a possibility. Or you can change the stair because it's still those kind of metal stairs are not nice to high heel wearers if she's wearing high heel. Plus the atmosphere that you build, she's still gonna have struggle going up.
She was wearing sneakers, I remember, because that's what
Yeah,
helped her
She was
grip.
wearing okay.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what helped her grip from the rain that was pouring.
yeah. And
Right.
not that I've ever seen an escape thing like that. I would think also, even with her sneakers, if you're doing like a traditional one where there's landing and steps, she could be still holding on to like the railing for dear life, because again, with your descriptions of the storm and stuff, if it's
Mm.
really intense, it I would assume it's still terrifying to be on one of those things.
I would be terrified.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you can still have that atmosphere, just adjust how her body is moving within
Mhm.
that scene.
Because even with sneakers on that metal with the rain, you're going to have some slippage, and
Yeah.
there's the little grates of holes, and so it can still be a scary situation going up.
Right.
I'm gonna pop this up because these are like cool suggestions.
Yeah,
Like
Mama
Mama
Maggie
Maggie
has a lot of
suggests
fun
she
suggestions.
works as an art restorer and she's working on the painter who was taken and that painted the original painting because they are reports of alien going back centuries. She also mentioned that Boston and Baltimore both have art schools, art museums, and brownstone style buildings with those style fire escapes. And they are all cities that are affected by severe rainstorms.
Okay.
So maybe you can narrow down which cities and kind of like look at pictures and see where those type of ladders are and where things are gonna be inside of it that would make her have to use that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to say I loved the quote that you have from, or of like the memory she has of the art professor saying, "Real art emotes expression and awe as a view of peace." And as she's perhaps experiencing the aliens who view art as something amazing, and they see her and they're like, and you said they like revere people, maybe bringing that up again
Mm.
in a more positive light now, because her art is being viewed differently. You can have this show of her growth and how she feels about herself based off of how the
Hmm.
professor memory comes back to her,
Ooh, I like
because
that.
it's a really good quote, and I
Yeah.
feel like it could be used again without it being like too repetitive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Especially the juxtaposition of having it suddenly admired instead of what he told her, which he completely put her down and said he felt nothing. But then you have these other new species who completely are feeling are evoked by this painting or by her skills or whatever she can do.
Yeah.
So that would be cool.
Um,
And yeah, Mama Maggie, I love that you get excited about world building.
yeah, don't apologize. You're surrounded with the right peeps.
Yes.
Like we all get super excited about world building.
Mhm.
Um,
I also really quick wanted to say, as a medical professional,
yeah.
I had a question. In chapter 2, you talk about her heart fluttering and you say arrhythmically against her breast. What are you trying to describe there? Because an arrhythmic heartbeat is actually can kill somebody. So I I don't know if it's because I was reading this at work last night, but I was like, um, Question mark. Is she dying? Like, and
See,
how
my
does she
heart
know this
like
term?
hurt.
No, no, I don't want her to die. Like I guess I was just trying to emphasize like how scared she was in the
Mm.
moment. I might
Okay,
have
so
to
that's fair.
rephrase that sentence because yeah, I didn't mean to make it sound that extreme.
And most
Where
people
she's
might
about to
not catch
die.
it, but I work on a heart unit, so I was just like, um, question mark. Is she dying?
That's awesome.
What are the aliens doing to
Maybe,
her?
yeah, maybe like feeling. I think there's a few sentences that she's like hearing how loud her heartbeat is. That can be a way. You can also say that she's like sweating so much because of her fear. Like maybe, um, she whenever like the part that she's like crawling to the other side to hide, maybe she's slipping a little bit because she's her hands are so sweaty, like they're giving out on her.
And is she
um
still wet from the rain, or is she dry now?
Oh,
When
that's
yeah,
you
a
that's
said
a
good
good
point.
slippage,
question
I
too.
thought you were gonna go with her being wet, but
Mm,
I
Hmm.
mean,
that's-
it depends on if she's still very wet or she's
she's been there for a while, or
yeah.
magically
Yeah.
Or did
dried.
the beam dry her as it went up? Like,
Yeah.
That's good to
Yeah.
consider.
Did they dry her when she was put on whatever room she's at?
yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to re-examine that. That's a good question.
Ooh, look at Mama Maggie with more cool ideas.
It's like if she had arrhythmia, it might had a reason to get her back to Earth because the aliens don't have her medicine or understand her health problem. That's true.
Mhm.
Interesting.
And hypothermia causes irregular heart rhythm.
Something else to maybe play with.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And that is another way to show like how incompatible they could be if she gets sick and they are struggling to get her well because they may have higher technology than humans, but their exposure to humans are not that far in advance to understand how to heal them. And they
Right.
might have to do a pit stop on Earth to get her well, and that could be a point or be like her deciding, do I stay here or do I go with him, or him could be like, oh, this should be the moment that I should let her stay and not get her involved even more in this entire ordeal. Um,
The conflict of the.
there's so many things
I
you
know
can
you could
do.
Yeah.
play with
I
so many.
I will say if you're gonna go with that medical part, I would do at least some light research because
Yeah.
your timing is going to be very important with how long she goes. Like if it's a known illness and she is taking medicine, there's going to be a time frame of how long can she be without some kind of medication, even if it's an alien like temporary before they take her to Earth to get like actual care. There's going to have to be a timeline. I mean, you can also throw it out, but just as like someone who has more of an understanding, for me reading that, that would probably break my perception of of reality. It'd be like she should probably be dead by now.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that
Also,
I was
another.
oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Just a quick like suggestion. Why does the human have to be kept warm? Like that's something that you can throw
Yeah,
as a world building hint.
right.
So what were you gonna say? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I was like, I wasn't gonna technically have her have like a physical health issue, but I was going to bring up in the novel that she does deal with like anxiety and some like depression. Um,
Mm,
that was gonna be brought up.
okay.
That's good. You will probably have to think if she's on medication for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how severe is it? To what
Hmm.
extreme?
Exactly. Like, would it need medication, or is she in the milder symptoms? Things like that.
Or if she's
Yeah.
okay on Earth and then in the planet, it affects her differently.
Mm.
Right. Oh,
Or
those are
even
good
being in
questions.
space, does it affect her differently than being on just a planet in general? Like
Mm.
with talking about her being stuck on the spaceship for a while.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Right.
Hey, Mama Maggie has a sci-fi book. I think it's a series. Yeah. In the Book of Elo series, my aliens do not understand why humans have so many diseases or why they eat such an unnutritional food. Food just for pleasure is not a concept they have. Cake is amazing.
Do they get
That
to
will be
experience their
interesting.
first cake, Mama Maggie,
But
Yeah.
and blow their mind?
That will be very interesting too. Like what that's something you can play on when they are in the spaceship. Like how are they going to supply for her? Like
Mm.
clothing, nutrition, her medicines, however severe or not, will staying in the spaceship for a long time would affect her anxiety or in her depression. Because I know for some people, the idea of the vast space for some people is relaxing, and for some people is anxiety inducing.
Mm.
um,
Also, is she the only female on the ship? So that's something
Hmm.
you could
yeah.
Hmm.
definitely play with the dynamics of.
And if it's not, how different she is from the other female
Mm.
species.
Hmm.
Because you could also play with gender in that sense of like, what is their definition of female versus her human definition of female?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Or do they even have a concept like that?
Hmm.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much to play.
Uh, yeah, it is. Um, Let me do a parenthesis because we have a question. It is not related to anything sci-fi, but is related to romance. J.K. Lambo, aka Joanne, is writing a bakery romance. And she is asking, how do you determine what occupation your main character has in your story? I already have Xavier and Lydia as a pastry chef, but I'm finding it difficult to choose what occupations I want their individual parents to have.
I mean, you
Well,
can.
the
Yeah.
setting.
Oh, yeah. Go, go. Because my brain was. Go.
Yeah, so I will look at where this is set. Are they in a small town? Are
Mm.
they in a city? Is this more like a suburb area? Because like a city will have a bigger pool of jobs than a small town.
Hmm.
Um, and if they are on a suburb, like a middle side city, the pool will be smaller, but they might have things that cities have that small towns don't have, and they will have things that small town have. Um, so it's very similar to like fantasy and sci-fi. Like in fantasy, you're gonna have like uh your blacksmiths and your hunters and your soldiers and all that. In sci-fi, you're going to have your pilots, you're going to have your soldiers, you're going to have your traders, you're going to have the people that run all the different markets. They're going to be front markets, they're going to be black markets. And there's a gazillion type of jobs in it. So it's going to be very based on where your story is in.
Hmm. And also, I was thinking, like, how did they get their base, like their pastry chefs? Do they have a bakery? And if they did they inherit that bakery, or did their parents invest money into helping them get their bakery? Kind of a deal. That would also determine more or less financially where their parents stand on how what they do. And then I'm reading what you're writing now.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so definitely, she's thinking about setting them up
In
as
the
medical
medical field.
dispatchers and EMT. I
I
mean,
would
it
say
could
where
make
they're living.
sense.
Oh,
It could make sense, but again, it's gonna be depending on where they live it.
yeah, I would say where they're living. If you're gonna go with that, I would say where they're living is important. And I'm not sure if it's in America or somewhere else, but if they're living in a more rural area, uh, for like the dispatcher, the medical dispatcher, the dispatching like 911 services aren't necessarily segregated. So if they're in a rural area, the dad would be like a sheriff dispatcher, where he would still dispatch to like the rural fire department and the rural EMTs and the sheriff's department all together. If they're living in cities, a dispatcher could still be in the sheriff's department, or it could be within the police district, or department. Also, if they're dispatching for a bigger area, like state troopers, marshals, things like that, I would consider that. But medical dispatching is not separate from other 911 uh, services, other
Mm,
emergency services. It's all within the same realm,
Building.
unless you're talking about them working in a hospital, because
mm,
hospitals have dispatchers too, but it's just the people on like the PA system or the people that help transporters who are transporting patients around. They're also called dispatchers, but that's within just a hospital setting.
mm.
Hmm.
So apparently they're in a small town in the
Small town.
U.S.
Yeah.
Okay. So that he could be a dispatcher for a sheriff, and the mom works for the like rural EMTs, and that's still how they talk, and maybe that's how they met. She sent him off to some place, and it was really bad, and they fell in love because I don't know, something like that. But
Yeah. So definitely, it's gonna depend on where
Hmm.
the story is set up, what kind of pool of jobs you have. Um. So we're closing into the hour and a half mark. Um, anything else specific that you want us to help you with, or do you feel like you got the clarification that you need? Um, so I know if we are wrapping it up, or if you need any additional help.
Um, yeah, I think that I've got a lot to work on. Yeah. Everybody's giving me a lot to think about. So yeah, I feel like I've gotten my questions answered. Really.
Yay!
Okay,
Awesome.
good, good. And do you feel a little more confident on your story?
Yes, I feel a lot more confident. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Which is definitely what I wanted you to, because I'm like I know writing can be very personal and very solitary. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure to be like, okay, I'm living with the tools that I need, and I'm living confident that I can write this.
Right.
And I think you do have a good story in your hands. Um, Definitely. And
Hmm.
obviously you have readership. Like
Oh
there's
yeah, there will be
plenty of
readership
people.
for it. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go, our resident Laura Nettles wrote us a little flash. Does
Mm,
anyone want to read it?
okay. I volunteer as tribute.
This was like, I'm gonna volunteer before Esther tells me to do
It's
it.
just like we'll just rip the band-aid off. All right, let's do this. The hatch opened, hermetic seal hissing as the alien atmosphere entered the antechamber of the ship. My helmet fogged slightly with my anxious breath. Whatever creature the scanners had detected would be just to the right of the doorway. My insulated boots thunked on the ramp as I turned to see what or who was there. The steam from the ship swirled around its form, concealing most of them, except their eyes. Three yellow eyes staring straight into mine. Something brushed gently against my mind, a whisper of words in a different language, but the feelings apparent all the same. Goddess. Laura. Laura,
Laura.
Laura, Laura.
So yes, my Maggie, what are your good news? Let us
Tell us.
know. Um, Also a few admin things. If you have any stories, whether you have something written or you're just brainstorming, anything in that spectrum, there is Google Forms for both people who are needing help, like Tiffany, and uh, writers or authors that would like to come up. I um fill them Please fill them out. If you don't feel, if the Google form is not something that comes easy to you, just send me an email and I'll do that for you. I just realized the Google forms are not in the description. Like, what am I doing? I can do this. um so again, I don't have set days for the romance writers room because I prefer, even though it's a lot more work on my side, I prefer to work with everyone's schedules. So everyone is taken care of. Um, Mama Maggie, whenever you are ready, um, let me find those Google forms. Oh, jeez, where they at? Okay, found them. Is this why I'm the
Queen of Link.
preparing link thing, link person? Okay, I think this is the
Ooh,
announcement. So, Ghost with Cats, Book of Elo. It got accepted to the Indie Colorado project, and now is available in Colorado public libraries. And I'm giving away a EPUB and a PDF copies, or you can listen to it on my YouTube. Nice. I
congratulations.
am going to wrench you, Mama
Yeah,
Maggie, so you can drop the links.
Yes,
that's awesome.
You
that
are
is awesome.
wrench, Mama Maggie. So drop that link to the audiobook. Because I know if there are any fellow sci-fi writers that want to get their hands on it, they can.
Indeed.
And also, the Google Forms have been updated on the description box. Uh, we're going a run of good news. Let us know what are the good news,
Everyone's like,
Joe.
I have
And
good news. I
do
have
do you have a date for or a title for
Project
the project
Sugar and
Sugar and Spice?
Spice.
Is that what I'm thinking? Is that my
Mm.
guess?
And there's the playlist. Nice.
So one of my writer friends give to culinary confessions to her author friend.
Oh,
Nice.
that's awesome.
So
That's
this
so
is the
cool.
link to the playlist.
Nice.
So if any of you want to watch it, to listen to it, go ahead and click on it. Also, I was clicking on the wrong side. Congrats, Mama Maggie. That is fantastic because it's very hard for indie
Mm-hmm.
authors to get into libraries. It's very,
Yes.
very hard.
So that's really big news. That's awesome.
That is fantastic. So, thank you, Tiffany, for sharing the story with us,
Yes.
for bravely coming up here. I know it's not easy, but again, you are in good hands. Everyone was very much into trying to help you develop even
Yeah.
more this story. Um, so we shall soon learn. Eventually, was the title. Um, Thank you, Dolores, for coming in here and letting us all know about all the sci-fi things and all the medical things
Yeah, right?
that we
Then you
didn't
were like,
even
oh, let's learn something.
thought. Uh, and also thank you, Des, because I know you've been very busy. I know, but I,
I
you're
was excited.
fabulous.
I was excited for
You
this.
are
Thank you, friend. I
fabulous.
appreciate you for having me here. I love it.
You are very welcome. So we're gonna do official outro. I can talk today. Outros. Starting with Tiffany. Let us know anything that you want to share. Where to find you? What do you do? Anything. Let us know.
Oh, hey. I will be on my Bookstagram where I post about 3 times a week, mainly alien and monster romances. So if you're into that, you can find me on Instagram at Tiff Stella Reads, and it's also in my little name up here.
Also in the description.
Hmm.
Um, excuse me. Like I said, I'm Dolores Medill, and I have a YouTube channel where I show stories in different ways. I am trying to post once a month now because I did take a break. But if you want to see more of me, I stream on Twitch, and I have a second channel where I post all the VODs, and I'm also starting to stream on there too. And there's games and writing sprints there, so you can check me out there. Oh, and I'm also
Also,
gonna be
she is
in.
doing yes.
Yes, I'm gonna be in the Storyteller Heart. I'm hosting on Saturday
Hey, yes.
I'll
with
be there
Esther.
with her.
Wait, there.
Hello, friends, and I'm Desiree M. Ortega. You can find me at YouTube. I can speak. Tired. Over on YouTube under Coffee Reading Writing, I post weekly videos. Stream Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, right by the moon live stream. I will also be a part of the Storyteller Hearth Weekend Relay Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern over on Coffee Reading Writing channel. And I stream most days on Twitch, twitch.tv/Desiree M. Ortega.
Nice. And you guys are in my channel, Esther Maria Andujar. I will be at Dolores stream. I will be at Dessa's stream. I will be at Nia's for a little bit
Me
stream.
too.
I will be everywhere apparently. I also stream on Twitch. It is twitch.tv/author EM Andujar. I It's up in the air if I'm gonna stream tonight because I am not feeling the best. So thank you everyone for kind of like stepping up when I'm like, like
Mm.
trying to get it out. uh, but I will be streaming tomorrow at 5 p.m. and I will be streaming on Thursday. I think it's at 9 p.m.
Mm.
And I will be at PJ's Scribble that Thursday. So that's going to be a very interesting day for me.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, I'm kind of like Jesus everywhere.
That is not what I thought was gonna come out of your mouth.
Sorry to all the very religious people. I just compare myself to Jesus.
Everywhere.
That's what you guys
All
are
at
here for.
once.
Thank you everyone for giving me your time on this quiet, relaxing Sunday night. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. And please, Tiffany, let us know how you're progressing. If you have if further on along you need more help, let us know. We're here to help you out. We have a pretty, pretty supportive community here. So reach out. We are always
Mhm.
available, and we shall wave until